Hey everyone, welcome back to another live. I'm Emmy Kalia, a self-taught artist from the Netherlands. So today we're going to learn how to draw long blonde hair. I got a comment last week asking how to do this, so I thought it would be the perfect topic for today. I'll show you the techniques I use to draw hair step by step using graphite pencils, and that way you can practice this technique to use in your own drawings. And if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat anytime. So let's get started. And first, I want to show you something. I have looked up different reference photos of different hair colors. And what I want to show you is that no matter the hair color, if you turn it into black and white, you can see that the only difference you will see are the different values. And so you can see that the darker the hair color is, the darker the values get. So of course there are many different hair colors and hair types, but today I want to show you the techniques I would use to draw long blonde hair. But let's say if you're drawing darker hair, you would use the same techniques, but then just darker values, so some darker pencil grades. And for example, if you would draw different hair types, like instead of straight hair, more curly hair or textured hair, you will just draw different hair strokes. So let's say instead of long hair strokes, you will draw curved strokes, or you will draw small circles overlapping each other. So it all depends on which hair you're going to draw. You will focus on which values you see and the direction the hair is flowing. And also like how long or short the hair is. So longer pencil strokes or shorter ones. I also have a few drawings here that I want to show you. Let's see. If you look at this blonde hair, you see that it's straight. And if you think, so I drew these long pencil strokes, and you can also see here that the hair is in shadow. So it's a lot darker than here where the light is shining. So if you think about blonde hair, you think you only need lighter values, but if there's shadow, you will also need darker values. So here's another one, but the hair is a bit more messy. So I created lots of flyaway hairs using the eraser. And here I also drew this one. This is also straight hair, but the hair is darker. And I used the same technique, but just darker pencil grades to create the darker values. So I created these step by step, starting with the sketch, and the video lessons are all available inside the membership. So let me show you now how I build up the layers to create natural and realistic hair. And I want to start with this reference photo. So this is really light blonde hair, and you can see, I think that if you're going to draw blonde hair, you might think, but how do I get all of those lighter values? So I would just start with a lighter pencil grade. This is the HB 9000 graphite pencil by Faber-Castell. And let's just start with the sketch. So I always use an HB for the sketch, but you can also go lighter if you have darker, if your graphite pencils are a bit darker. I'm just going to draw a part of this so that I can show you step by step. I hope it's not going to be too light so that you can see what I'm doing on camera. Zoe says, I love this video. I was waiting for this video a long time. I have difficulties for drawing blonde hair. I'm so glad this video will be helpful for you. And I know that more of you are struggling with hair, and not only blonde hair, but all types of hair. So yeah, I really want to tell you that this technique, step by step, is for any type of hair, just darker values. And so in this case, I'm going to follow the reference photo. It's a long hair, so I'm going to draw longer pencil strokes. Okay, so I'm going to follow the direction of the hair that I see. Yeah, I'm going to mention the pencils that I use, and these are the Faber-Castell 9000 graphite pencils. And if I need darker values, I also have the Pitt Graphite Matte, because these ones go up to 8B. If I need darker, then you can use one of these darker ones, the matte Faber-Castell. So yeah, Faber-Castell is my favorite brand, but you can use any type of graphite pencils. Any brand will be best. Okay, so yeah, start with the sketch, and once I start to build up the layers, I usually start with the midtones. So you might think, okay, but lighter hair is really light, but I like to use an eraser to create the lightest values. So I build up the values focusing on the midtones, and then where I need to go darker, I go darker, and where it's lighter, I use the pencil, the stick eraser, and that's this one, my favorite, Mono Zero. So I use this as a drawing tool as well. Okay, so let's just draw this quickly. So you can draw with me, or you can just follow the technique and pick out your own reference photo. Yeah, I'm just going to draw a part because I want to draw another piece here. So you can see that because the hair strokes are long, I just create these long strokes like this, and again, I start to focus on the midtones. So you see that I'm kind of filling it all in. This, and here it starts to go like this. And then at the top, you can see that it's a bit darker. Yeah, it's difficult to just draw a part and not the whole head, but here's where the hair ends. Let's also draw that a bit, because that's where it's a bit darker in value. Okay, so now to blend, oh, I forgot to take my soft tissue. This is the soft tissue that I always use to blend, or I use a blending stump. But in this case, it's a larger area, so let's blend the first layer. And then you already start to see that it creates a beautiful, nice, soft effect. So just keep on blending with your soft tissue like this. And now you can see that because it's really light hair, blonde, you don't really have to go darker, but some values are darker. So let's move on to the next pencil grade, that's the 2B. And just go over the, yeah, you can also try to squint your eyes. So look at the reference photo, squint your eyes, and then try to look at shapes you see in the hair. Up here it's a bit darker. So this is how I just build up the layers, focusing on the direction of the hair that I see. and the value. So here in the middle, it's a bit lighter, here at the end as well. Here you can see the hair is overlapping a bit, so here in between there's a bit more shadow. And again, because it's longer hair, I create longer hair strokes. And it's better to go a bit darker than too light, because if your value gets a bit too dark, you can always just use the eraser. And to use the eraser to create those highlights in the hair, you will need to have some value here. So okay, so you can already see that it's starting to look like hair. And then I always blend after each layer. I don't really like those pencil strokes, even though hair has texture. To make it look natural, I like to blend in between. And looking at the values, we don't even have to go much darker, but let's say if this hair was darker, I would add another layer, focusing on the darkest values. Just keep on going until you build up the layers until you have the darker values that you want. And then I use the eraser. So let's look at those lighter parts in the hair. So think about different shapes. So I'm starting here with this stroke. Lighten, and also focus on, because the light is shining, you see here kind of like that glow or that highlight. Here it's lighter than here because of the light shining. So make sure that you have those highlights here. And I have a big brush for those eraser crumbs. And make sure you clean off your eraser in between. Let me show you the values I used. This is the HB, and this is the 2B. And then the highlights will be the white of the paper. So that's why I think some find it tricky to create blonde hair, because the paper is already white and light. So then that's why I always like to focus on the midtones first and go darker, and then you can always go back to create the highlights. It's easier that way. Instead of trying to leave those parts light and trying to like draw around it, you know? And then depending on how messy the hair is, you will always have some flyaway hairs, like here, for example. And that's the last step where I create like that messy hair. But this hair looks quite neat and all straight. Okay, now I blend this again, and then I repeat the steps. So you don't want to finish here. I like to continue. And yeah, I always say with hair, the more layers you create, the more realistic it will look. So I will blend this all together, and yeah, your highlights will get a bit less bright, but even the highlights are not all the same, yeah, in value. Even the highlights also have different lighter values. That's why I always like to blend again. And with the 2B, I'm going to darken. So I think I just need the HB and the 2B for this hair. Don't need to go darker. So yeah, for long blonde hair, just use the lighter pencil grades. Depending on the shadow, if you look at the reference photo here, in between you see a darker shadow, but that's just because you're looking through the hair. So you can go a bit darker there, but the rest is all pretty light. And again, if you go too dark, you can always use the eraser and go over it again. Like you can also use the kneaded eraser to dab if you need to go a bit lighter. So you can always go back and forth. That's what I like to do with hair. And the darker parts are only up here, so I'm just making it a bit darker up here. And then in between. And with the HB, I'm going to draw some lighter hairs in between here that are not too dark, but just Lena says, I follow you and enjoy your lessons. I'm so glad to hear that, Lena. I'm always glad to hear if my videos are helpful, because I always, I'm always happy to share what I have learned throughout the years and what I'm still learning to help others, achieve the same results. Because I remember when I was a beginner, how I was looking and searching for the right materials to use, for the right techniques. How do you need to layer? What do you need to use? And also for, every drawing you create, you need to know which kind of techniques you need to use, or how can you create a certain type of hair in this case. Let's use the eraser again. So you see how you slowly get more and more texture. And at first it's like just roughly building up the layers, focusing on the values, and then you start to create, you start to look at the texture and create more texture. Let's see here. So again, highlights, and then I will blend again, and then I think, this hair is quite light, so you don't even need that much layers. So with blonde hair, I would say keep it light, but still build up the layers. So a bit more layers than, like, if you say 1 or 2, even though it's light. Keep on building up a few layers. So blend, add a layer again, blend again, even though you think those steps are like repeating yourself. I think every step matters with hair. Zoe says, thanks for this video. You're welcome again. James says, you're totally awesome. Thank you. Yeah, again, you're welcome. I'm always happy to help. And now I want this part to be a bit darker than the rest. You see that? So I'm going to use the 2B again to darken here. And if you think that's not dark enough, you can always use, let's see, this is the 4B. It's close to the 2B, but just a bit darker, because you don't want to start pressing harder if you want darker value. With hair, it's really important to keep your pressure light with every layer because you want to be able to erase. So always keep your layers light. So that's why if you think, okay, I need a bit darker, move on to the next pencil grade. And that's why I always used a black colored pencil for the darker, but now Faber-Castell has created these Pitt Graphite matte pencils, so these are great to use for the darker values, but for this blonde hair we don't need those darker values. For this hair, this really blonde hair, these shadows, I used darker values here. But yeah, if you look at the reference photo again, you don't see those in this reference photo. So depending on the blonde hair that you're going to draw, look at the shadows you see. And I also like to draw hair in sections. So like in smaller sections. So like I'm doing now, this piece, I draw a small part first and then I continue with another part. Or here, if you're going to draw a whole portrait, you know, usually I start, like for example here, I start with the left part here, then I start continue here, and then here, and then here. You don't have to draw it all at once. Focus on the layers and think about smaller sections and shapes in your hair. That also helps to draw it better. I'm looking at the darker parts that I see. If they are a bit darker in between. And I'm just using light pressure with the 4B. Let's use the blending stump. But first I want to clean it off because if you've used it for another drawing, you don't want it to be too dirty when you're working with lighter values. Why I'm using the blending stump now is because this, I want to keep this value a bit darker. And with the tissue, you lighten it just a bit. Okay, and with the HB again, you can draw a few texture, a few hair strokes in between to create a bit texture if it's all looking too smooth. But because you're doing that with a lighter pencil grade, it doesn't really stand out too much because you want to keep the hair looking natural. And then I like to blend that again, and then the eraser. So you see how often I just go back and forth. And now the eraser again. So here. Focus on the lighter parts. And then lastly, I focus on, is there any hair overlapping or do you see any flyaway hairs? That you can create those. And that will help to make it look even more natural. Here. Clean off. Yeah, I just do it with my hands. I don't have an extra piece of paper here, but it's... Otherwise you can just wipe it off. And I think it's easier to draw wavy hair because you can really see like wavy or curly hair or textured hair, because you can really see like the shapes better. Long hair, yeah, I think it's more difficult because it's more difficult to think about the different shapes you see. Okay. Yeah, let's see if um, let's blend this with a clean tissue so that I don't lose all of the highlights, but just smoothen it a bit. HB. Again for some lighter texture. And then make sure that you have this part where it's lighter, where the light is shining. Okay, so those are the steps, HB again, that I use to create hair. And if you're creating a whole portrait, of course, you won't be just focusing on this hair section, but you will focus on the whole portrait. Usually the main focus in a portrait are the eyes. I think those are the most important to get right. And yeah, you can practice hair, but the rest of the, like the face of the portrait is important too. So I think the proportions for your portrait, that's the most important. And then the values. So for example, if your hair is looking really good and the rest of the face of the portrait is not, it's also important to practice drawing full portraits. But I know that some are good at drawing like the face and then they struggle drawing the hair and they don't want to ruin their drawing. So then in that case, it's good to practice smaller, smaller pieces. Like just look up a reference photo and just draw. Let's focus on this. Is another blonde hair, but it's a bit darker and it has like this wave. So I wanted to draw, this is the HB. I also wanted to show you how I would draw this one. So this is more straight. And then here you obviously see a shape. It's more curved. So again, I always start with the sketch. And the like I focus on the direction that I see the hair is flowing. And let's see, this part is like that, and then we have a part here. James said would love to see it on a whole picture. Yeah, that's if you're going to draw a whole portrait, but that really takes a long time. So for example, if I have this full portrait here, I start by creating the whole sketch, and that already takes me like a whole hour. or more. Then you start the shading. I start with the eyes, like the facial features, then the nose, then the mouth, and then I start the rest of the face. And then at last, the hair and the neck, and then part of the clothing. This total is like in between 4 and 6 hours. So if your main goal is to draw full portraits, like if you want to draw others from a reference photo, I wouldn't try drawing portraits right away. I would practice drawing facial features first. Learn how to draw a realistic eye, learn how to draw a nose, how to create realistic blending, and then a mouth, different angles, how to make it look realistic, and then of course hair. And this is all of that practice will help you once you start drawing portraits, so that you know the techniques. And I think that's important before you draw full portraits right away and you're not satisfied with what you're drawing, and then you're making mistakes and you don't know why or what mistakes, or what the how you can yeah, correct that, or what you're doing wrong actually. So if you're a beginner and you look at your drawing and you know something is wrong, but you don't really know how to fix it, I would advise to focus on smaller things first. Practice the facial features first. Practice drawing hair. Okay, so you see that with the sketch, I just roughly look at the midtones to first create like the first shapes. And the first layers are, yeah, they can be messy. You just need to draw something. Just draw, focusing on the direction of the hair, like the flow. And you can always correct, like if you see, like I notice now that it's a bit more like this. This is the darker part. That is something that you can correct. So just draw something, start building up the layers, and keep on going. So next, the 2B. Continue to build up the layers, and always don't forget to blend in between. That's my tip I would give. Blending and the eraser to create highlights, instead of leaving those lighter parts, you know, trying to draw around those lighter highlights in the hair. Create them later with the eraser. James says, love your work, you are the best. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind comments. You know what's also true, like someone else looks at another artist's drawing differently than your own drawings. So yeah, whenever I look at my drawings, I think, okay, yeah, it's not so bad. But after a while, or when I make a picture of my drawing, after a while, what I want to say is, when you're working on a drawing, you might not be that satisfied with it, because you're focusing on all of the smaller parts, and maybe focusing on the things that went wrong. But what helps me is like, step away from your drawing, just take a picture, and then come back the next day. And I'm talking about if you're going to create a whole portrait, of course, not just these small practices. But once you take a picture, or you come back the next day, you might not, yeah, you will come back with fresh eyes and you will see it differently. And then you might think, oh, that actually is not that bad. I was just focusing on the wrong things when I was drawing it. So that's also, when you're drawing, something for yourself and you're not liking it, just take a break and come back to it later. You might be more satisfied with it then. So this was the 2B. I see that we can go a bit darker. So let's use the 4B and focus on the bit darker parts that you see. Jurda says, hi, I'm late. Yeah, no problem. You can follow from here, or you can watch the replay after. So this is the HB, 2B, and 4B. With blonde hair, you don't have to go really, yeah, only if you see that shadow here, but that's not part of the hair, that's in between, like the neck. So the rest is quite light. So again, I'm focusing on the direction. And here you see this part where it's overlapping. You can look through, and here you also see some darker shadow parts. See that? So I'm only focusing on this smaller part of the hair. Up here there's more hair, but just a small part. So these smaller practices are great to help you improve once you start drawing hair on portraits. So when you're practicing these hair drawings, you want to be satisfied with what you create before you move on to add or to draw hair in your portraits. Blend again. And you see how it all gets really natural and smooth. Okay, so now we need highlights. With the eraser, focusing on the lighter areas, the lighter parts that you see. And because this is long hair, you will just follow like the longer hair stroke. So here we just kind of went back and forth because it's more straight. And then here you're going to follow the flow and the hair. Clean it off the eraser. Because otherwise you will be smudging instead of erasing. See that? Focus on the direction that you see. And you see that these highlights, it was all looking one value, but now the highlights start to create more, you start to get more depth in your drawings. And then you see some messy flyaway hairs, but wait, for that we're going to create that in like the last steps, one of the last steps. You're welcome, Giovanni. Okay. And let's blend this. So now you're not finished. Let's continue. Remember, the more layers, even though these are all light. The 2B. I just like to go back and forth. I think that really helps to create more natural hair. And yeah, again, I don't know if this is like repeating steps, just going a bit like back and forth. I think that it's, even though it's just a small difference, I think it makes a difference. And I also don't like to rush my drawing. So whenever you're drawing something, try to take your time with it. If you're going to try to draw something realistic, or you want it to look like the reference photo, yeah, you want to take your time. Sometimes with you know, with all of these fast drawing videos that we see online, these shorts, it looks like we can create something really fast. You know, like we put 4 hours in 1 minute, and you try to finish your drawing like in 1 hour, and then you think, oh, why am I not getting those natural or realistic results? Because you need to spend more time on it. Layers. Focus on the values. And this is the 4B. That was the 2B. I'm going to darken a bit here. So yeah, again, I like to take my time, and it's also important to take breaks in between. When I take breaks, or I even come back the next day, I like to make a picture of the progress or the step that I'm at, and then I like to analyze it. Like, okay, how is this looking? What can I add? What can I change? What can I correct? Taking your time is important, and also drawing something will actually need to, yeah, give you like a calm feeling. It needs to be something that will help you take your mind off, like, you know, everyday things, like just something to relax. Just draw, focus on the steps that you're doing, and yeah, just draw. That's what I love about drawing. I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about what happened yesterday. I'm just focusing on the steps now. I'm just focusing on my drawing, what I need to do next, the next step, adding darker value, you know. And once you create something from, like, you start with a blank piece of paper and you create something, it gives you that feeling. You can be satisfied with what you're doing, and that can help you feel more relaxed. And it's also a lot about mindset. So if you're a beginner and you're not yet where you want to be, just remember that you will need to keep on going and practice. Yeah, the eraser again. Okay, let's focus. Highlights here. Here. So when you're going to draw a full portrait, remember, also just create it in smaller sections. So like this part or this part, you're going to create this with these steps, and then continue to draw the hair until it's finished. But focus on the smaller steps or the smaller sections. That really helps. Because if you look at a full portrait and you think how am I going to draw all of that hair? Try not to think about that. Try to think about shapes. Okay, which section am I going to draw first? Which direction do I see the hair flowing in that section? Like in this reference photo as well, you see that I'm only drawing this part. So that's what I would also do in the reference photo. And then I would focus on that part here, and then this part here in the back. Yeah, that helps. Also try not to think about, oh, I'm going to draw hair. Just think about, yeah, think about shapes. And focus on what you see in the reference photo. You see that all of these layers start to make it look like hair. Now again with the 4B, trying to make it a bit darker here. And then with the 2B, you can create some of those lighter hair texture. And then I need some of those flyaway hairs. That would really make it, like finish it. That's what I like with more messy hair. You see this one is really neat. That I think it makes it look, more realistic. So you see this, I'm using the same steps here. Here I'm just adding a bit darker values in some areas. And instead of back and forth, yeah, curved hair strokes. So you see that's the difference. But both long blonde hair. Okay, I'm going to use the stump. Because I just want to blend some parts, not the whole thing. Focusing on the darker values now. Here, I want just a bit more with the 4B. Adding a bit darker value, and with the HB, some more texture. Okay, let's again blend just some parts, because we don't want to lose all of the highlights. Then I just blend with the stump instead of with the soft tissue. And let's create those flyaway hairs as well. Adding the highlights back where I need to. And then you see like these, let's make sure that the eraser is clean. And then you create these thinner hair strokes. Like these messy flyaway hairs. This is what I mean. And make sure that your tip, you can also use a craft knife and then cut off like to create a sharper tip if you can't erase those thinner strokes. If that doesn't work, then you can try using craft knife to cut off a sharper edge for the eraser. And I like to blend this a bit because these look like just random pencil strokes. And what I also like to do is use the HB, a lighter pencil grade. In this case, HB is the lightest one. I like to draw like that flyaway hair it needs to come out of the hair. So I like where it starts. I like to add some value so that it looks like it's coming out of the hair, you know, and not on top, if that makes sense. So you can also use the blending stump. I have the smaller stump and I'm just going to clean it off on the tissue here because I don't want it too dark. So I like to blend over the beginning of that eraser stroke and also sometimes over the end, you know, so that it looks like it's coming out. And also at the end to create like how do you say that? At the end of hair, you know, it looks thinner, like it almost tapers a bit. So that's what I like to do, just to make it look a bit more. And also, if this is the side of the hair, you know, you will also have some flyaway hairs on the sides. So then this is again the HB. So then I draw these flyaway hairs on the sides, like this. And then, let's see, the kneaded eraser. I lighten them a bit to like push them more to the back so that they're not too obvious. So that's, yeah, that also gives a bit more of a natural look. And then again with the HB, let's see, do I need some more texture somewhere? Then you can just draw like these flyaway hairs with the pencil as well. You see that? So with blonde hair, just keep the values light, HB, 2B, maybe the 4B, if you see the shadows are darker. This is the 2B. Yeah, I could continue to work on this and again go back and forth, but these are the steps. And yeah, with what I mean continue to work on this, what I do if this is a full portrait, I move on to the next section and then the next, and then you can look back, see if you need to correct somewhere. So the HB, I want to add some flyaway hairs here. And then, yeah, always make sure that you go over those eraser strokes and blend them a bit so that they don't just look like some random lines, but actually that it looks like it's part of the hair. And then you can blend, you can erase again, just see, again, kind of like back and forth steps. Go over the flyaway hairs here on the side if you need to lighten them, make them look more natural. So let's see. Yeah, I think that's it for this one. HB. So you see, I used the same, yeah, use the kneaded eraser if you just want it a bit lighter. I used the same techniques with this one, but here it's just a bit more curved, and you also see a bit more flyaway hairs. And this one is more straight. So yeah, you build up this layers the same way, step by step, and I only used these pencil grades because it isn't darker than this. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. This is how I would draw long blonde hair. And let's say if this was shorter hair, you would use the same techniques, but instead of going like with these longer pencil strokes, you will just go with all of these short pencil strokes. So again, the same technique, adding layers, blending, always blend after each layer, using the pencil eraser, the stick eraser for the highlights, and that's how you will build up your values to create this hair. And if it's darker hair, remember, you will just continue to go darker and darker. And if you, darker pencil grades, if the 8B isn't dark enough, you can use the Pitt Graphite Matte to go darker. So this is, this is a technique that I use. James said, can watch you draw all day, wonderful. And Sebastian says, so helpful, thanks a lot, Emmy. You're welcome, everyone. And yeah, again, thanks so much for joining today. Now, if you'd like full step-by-step art projects like you see here, and personal feedback and maybe community support, you'll find it all inside the Artistic Journey membership. It's designed to guide you in a structured way so you can grow from beginner all the way to advanced. And inside you will find lots of step-by-step video lessons that are available now, with new ones added every month. So there's always something for you to create and learn from. But if you're a beginner, I suggest starting with the drawing course. But if you're ready to explore some more, you can just pick a medium and start creating. There are so many videos to keep you learning and inspired. And if you ever thought by looking at these drawings like, I can't draw like this, well, you can. By starting with the basics and going step by step, just let me show you how. So instead of repeating the same mistakes in your drawings, I'll help you improve and move forward. The link to join the membership is under the video if you like. And James asked, could you do the tighter curls one day? Yeah, I will keep that in mind. But you can also start to practice that for yourself. So use the same techniques that we just did, but then draw the hair, the pencil strokes, more curved. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this live. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope to see you all next time. So have a nice day or evening. Bye bye.